Okay, let's get started. First of all, just a big thank you ever so much to you all for being here. It's wonderful to have you all here with me. It means so much to have you here to celebrate with me tonight. Just by way of explanation, in terms of how the evening is going to go, there's going to be a few short talks just to give you the background on how we reached this point in terms of the book being published from a few people who know it best. Then there's going to be a playing of the trailer video for the book. I will do a book reading, and then there'll be a chance afterwards to mingle. There's some maps and old notebooks around the place. Please take a look, and then by all means come and get a signed copy of the book. But some thank yous first off. Thank you to the C3 Church for hosting us here tonight. Thank you for those who've made it look so amazing with the lights and everything. It looks fantastic. Steph, thank you for doing the photography. If anyone doesn't want photos themselves used online, just let me know. But thank you. I think my first thank you should be to the publisher, to Malcolm and Sarah at Malcolm Down Publishing. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. I wouldn't be here without you, so thank you. Lucy, you're an amazing wife. I love you so much. Thank you for walking this road with me. Thank you for putting up with me having such an all-consuming labour of love.
You owe me.
Yeah. Thank you to all my friends for being here, and to those who've travelled so far as well. I think I've got friends here from Rugby and Kent and old school friends and people who've travelled a long way. Thank you so much for being here with me. Matt, Taylor, Kelly Jamieson, thank you so much for being my cheerleaders right the way through this process. You've let me talk on and on about it endlessly, and you've given me such encouragement along the way. Thank you. Thank you so much. And then Mum and Dad, thank you so much. You provided the good soil in which the seed of this book germinated and sprang to life. Thank you for so much encouragement and proofreading along the way. It's really great. Thank you so much. So after that short introduction, I'm going to hand over to a couple of very special people who are going to tell you a little bit about the story of how Oron Amular came into being.
Thanks, Mike. For those who don't know, I'm Mike's dad. I'm Ian, and Lucy down here. I just want to give you a little bit of background about... He asked me to tell you a bit about what he was like as a child. What a mistake. Mike was a prolific writer from a very early age. He actually caused a big problem for his younger brother. Now, his younger brother was 18 months younger, but one school year behind. And we used to get constant complaints about how little Chris wrote. You know, he'd be giving a creative writing exercise for homework, and he'd come back and he might just have reached the bottom of one page of his exercise book. We got complaints the other way with Mike. One particular essay, he'd handed it in his exercise book, which was needed because it was the whole exercise book. And some of you may have listened to the interview Mike did on Radio 105, and it was broadcast last week. You'll have heard him talk about falling in love with Tolkien's writing, reading The Hobbit in his grandma's house. But for me, there's an extra element to what constitutes the world of Astrom today, and that was Mike's love of geography. And just to give you a feel of that, I want to take you back to 1990. It was in the lead up to World Cup, Italia 90. Mike had got a load of World Cup stickers. Now, most normal people get a sticker book and put them in there, but I remember actually at his Nana's house, walking into the sitting room to find that actually he'd taken those stickers and he'd arranged them in their countries to make a map of the world. So he was, you know, and how old was he? 4. So you can see a little bit sort of nerdy on the geography. And from that there was this love of drawing maps, and you know, you will see the maps that have come out. Just another little story. Again, those of you who know Mike, you will see, something of his character coming out in this. But there was one time in class in junior school, he must have been 8 or 9, when the teacher asked what was the biggest delta in the world. And one pupil put their hand up and said it's an Nile, at which point the teacher said, yeah, that's right. At which point someone else decided that actually she was wrong. Mike, any fool knows it isn't the Nile, but it is
The Ganges.
the Ganges. And he didn't hesitate to tell his teacher that she was wrong, and had a big argument with her. Okay. Knowing you're right and how you tell people you're right is maybe something that he's beginning to learn. You asked me. But do take time to look at the maps, because most of those maps were crafted back as a teenager. They've been refined there. But for me, that love of geography and that love of maps has been an integral part of this story coming together, because as he was visualising those. I also want just to redeem one little thing from the interview. Those of you who heard the interview would have heard Mike say how upset he was that, having read The Hobbit, there were 2 people who wouldn't let him read Lord of the Rings for at least another year. He was only about 8 at this time, so we were chastised slightly for holding him back and not letting him read Lord of the Rings. Now, my interpretation of that, of course, is that, of course, he wasn't ready, so when he read it at exactly the right time, so was the world of Astron birthed. Okay, I want to hand over to Lucy to tell you a little bit about what it's been like living with Mike through some of this.
I'm not quite tall enough, am I? Hard is the answer. I just want to say, congratulations, sweetheart. I'm so proud of you. Mike and I have been married for 10 years now, and we met at university. And when we met, it was pretty obvious that we were both coming into this relationship with a long-term, committed relationship that each of us were bringing to it. For me, that was with the duvet, and I was not prepared to share. And for Mike, it was the world of Astrom, and he was so keen to share it with me. So keen that 3 months into our relationship, for my birthday, he gave me a bound copy of his precious manuscript. No pressure. And actually, the version that you have before you, that we've all come here to celebrate, is very, very different from that version. Irritatingly so, because every single time I would read it and go and talk to him about it, he would say, oh, it's not like that anymore, I've changed it. But it's alive, and this book has been alive for 10 years in our relationship, and it's kind of weird that now it's pinned down and it's not going to change anymore. But actually the world of Astrom is alive, because Mike's he's got so much, there is so much there that he has created, and that I don't know if anyone will ever see, but I hope that will be published and will be shown, because there's so much there. He has written over 10,000 years of history. He has made over 120 maps. He has created new languages, new species, stories, sub-stories, and of course, the story, Oron Amular. I've never met anyone as determined as Mike. I know if it had been me, if it had been my dream, and I had been working once a week in my evenings, week after week after week, by myself, I would have given up. But Mike is so passionate about this, and he's so determined, and he's made it work. And I just want to honour him tonight for 10 years of keeping going, of persevering. And you know what, particularly over the last 18 months, because it was about 18 months ago that he first met Malcolm Down, and the dream started to become a tantalising reality. And at the same time, Mike was working 2 full-time jobs. He was running his photography business. He was writing blog posts, of which he had done some pretty chunky series. He was co-leading our Connect group with me. writing Bible studies for that, writing talks for Alpha, writing talks for other things. His personal life kind of went a bit phenomenally busy. Oh, and we had a second child.
Always forget that one.
So yeah, it's been a really, really, really busy 18 months, but we're all here today because of the work that Mike has put in. I don't know how you do it, but I'm so proud of you. Congratulations, sweetheart.
Thank you, darling. So, there you have it. That's the story so far. It all started with a little boy who couldn't stop writing. And actually, if I could go back in time and if I could talk to that little boy, I'd want to thank him for having the courage to go for his dream. I would want to tell him, the man you'll become will forever be grateful that you had a dream and you kept at it and you didn't let go. Astrom is the world I've created. It's an epic world, full of fantastic places and enchanting possibilities. I'm so glad to welcome you all tonight to explore it. Ever since I read my first fantasy books in my grandma's house, reading them by lamplight, I was introduced to the concept of world building, and I fell in love. Suddenly, my stories had the outlet they'd always wanted without realizing it. It's no small thing to build an entire world. Not if you want it to make sense. Not if you don't want it to echo with emptiness and incomplete characters. It started with a map, which, as you've heard in excruciating detail, I had a bit of a knack for. But very soon, the landscapes became more and more demanding. Who are those people? What language do they speak? What do they believe? What do they think? What's the historical backdrop? What's the climate like? How does that magic work? Whose family trees are connected to whose? It's just all proliferated. Quickly found that I had to become an expert in everything, or at least to try to, everything from agriculture to architecture. I had to make people feel that this world really could exist out there, to really believe in it. Anything that would break the immersion would just break the spell. Being well versed in history certainly helps, and I've learned so much along the way. It's been a 17-year labour of love. But the quest for publication was long and hard. Harder than I'd ever imagined. Worse than the direst warnings of everyone at the time. My post became full of nothing but rejection letters from publishers, and every door slammed shut in my face caused me to really wrestle with my faith, and it caused me to doubt, but I had to carry on. Trusting in God's plan and perfect timing, I persevered, because sometimes that's all you can do. I read something a while ago. I saw a poster that said, do something every day that brings you closer to your dream. And those of you who know me will know those are the words I live by. Every day I've tried to work closer to this dream. So while I was meeting brick walls on the publication front, I kept building the world. I kept developing the narrative, new stories, new characters, just kept plugging away. I realised also a major rewrite was needed. You know, the 16-year-old me was very proud of the novel he'd written, but I realised a few years ago it wasn't going to cut it, so it needed a complete rewrite. But although Oron Amular became better than ever, the dream still seemed so far away, until a chance meeting in 2018 brought me in contact with Malcolm Down. And I'm so grateful for the opportunity, for the opening that I've been longing for so many years. I thank God for bringing me to this moment. I believe He's given me a gift of writing, and I want to honour Him with every word that I write. I hope my own story encourages all of you to believe in your own dreams. Don't give up on them. It might take half a lifetime. It might take 17 years. But keep going. Keep chasing your dreams. So this is just the beginning for Astrom. I hope that there will be many, many books to follow this. This book is the first in a trilogy. And I hope that you'll keep your eyes peeled in 2020 for part 2. But to bring us back to the call of the mountain, here's the trailer video. Enjoy. some social media links there. It'd be great if you check them out. And if you do post about this, please use the hashtag Call of the Mountain. But without any further ado, here's a taster for you. Most petitioners would have been duped by the king's evasive route, but not this one. His was a special petition, an urgent petition, and it had to be today. His task could not be delayed, nor his offer made again once the opportunity was missed. Unfamiliar though he was with the city, especially this part of it, some guiding force greater than the will of Cerulean brought his feet to the right place. Hurrying at unaccustomed speed, he arrived in the nick of time, exploding out of the side street onto the main thoroughfare in a red blur. The king's horse had only just enough time to rear to a sudden halt without smearing him into the road. The onlookers gasped. The spectacle of the great horse rearing over him was terrifying, and he cowered back onto the road, thinking at any moment that he would be trampled to death. Yet no sooner had the initial terror of the lead horse diminished than a second horse advanced up. A grim rider, hugely tall and menacing on his big steed, rode down on him, sending him scampering back along the road. A sword was unsheathed, but as it was swung round into an attacking position, the voice of command rang out. "Leave him be, Lantois!" The rider of the first horse was on foot now and level with the other rider, who stopped advancing, but still stood high in his stirrups, a hovering, bullish menace. The dismounted rider walked ahead of the horses and confronted the armist whom he had nearly crushed. The newcomer now saw that, unlike the other mounted armists, this armist's hood had fallen down in the near miss, and a circlet of silver with a blue sapphire at its front was evident upon his head. He had not been led wrong. This was the royal riding. "My friend," said the king, "whatever your haste, I hope it was worth nearly being killed for." The younger armist could only just manage to speak in response, the shock still causing his heart to pound and his breath to come in frantic gasps. "Lord King, I come to offer you my service." At the mention of that title, a buzz went through the onlookers. They had noticed the jewel in the circlet too, but now their suspicions were confirmed. The king was here. The king's captain, who had seemed intent on trampling him, spat his derision. "You! What service could a beggar like you offer us?" The newcomer became keenly aware of his age-stained red and brown garments. He did indeed feel quite the beggar, but he was committed now. He might as well see it through. If the king was not amenable, then he had already done enough to merit the royal dungeons. "I know where you are going. I'm going to the same place. I can help you." Suspicion and wariness immediately came into the king's bemused face, but soon they were joined by a strange expression which the newcomer couldn't identify. They made a strange and vivid pair, the coroneted and mail-clad rider in rich green and black, and the dusty beggar in faded red. And Cerulean suddenly became aware of the growing number of people watching, well within earshot. He strode resolutely forward towards its accoster, close enough so that only he could hear the next words. "Where am I going?" The young armist now realized the need for discretion, despite having played the key role in its being thrown to the winds. He matched the king's low tone. "Oron Amular, to the mountain of high magic. I can help you. I've been there." Wonder and surprise showed in the king's face, but he mastered them within moments. "Come then, and we shall see if your claim is true. Woe betide you, though, if you have spoken falsely." He turned and beckoned to another senior-looking rider. "Commander, a spare horse for this armist. He comes with us." In startling speed, a horse with an empty saddle was brought up, and the king remounted, ignoring the disapproving look of the knight beside him. In a trice, the whole cavalcade moved off. They left behind them a bewildered crowd of city dwellers, rubbing their eyes and rummaging in their ears, wondering if they had really seen and heard what they thought they had. The king's cohort, though, was long gone. They slowed just enough for the lead riders to go on ahead and arrange clear passage at the south gate. The guards at the gate opened wide the passage and cleared the crowds aside, so Cerulean and his party of 123 were able to sweep through without so much as breaking pace. In a blur of green and brown, they left the city behind and entered the townlands beyond. Now they spurred into a full gallop and were flying eastward. A tournament beckoned them. That's the end of chapter 1. I hope that's whetted your appetites. There'll be a chance to do some book signing in a minute, but if anyone had any questions at this point, I'm rather foolishly going to open myself up for them. Lucy, what would you like to know?
Who is your favourite character in the book?
My favourite character is someone whose name I'm not going to give away yet because you won't meet until later in the first book. But he's a very playful character. He knows a lot, and there's
I'm having trouble connecting to the internet.
Thanks for that, Alexa. Great to have you here.
Power unimaginable.
Should have had her read it. Well, Cerulean is obviously one of the foremost characters. He's rock hard. He's amazing. He's had a fantastic career. He's great fun to write. Rujark is also fun to write because he's the one with the real journey. He's starting from a much lower point, racked with the same doubts that I had when I started on my adventure, and it's fun seeing how he grows as the novel grows.
Mike,
Doug, hey.
which part of the process of writing do you find the most challenging? And then similarly, what part of the process do you look forward to the most and find the most enjoyable?
I think the part I find most enjoyable is what I call Imagineering. It's just when I'm out in nature, I'm on a long walk, I'm listening to my favourite soundtrack, and I'm just thinking it through. I'm just turning ideas over in my head, and I can see the stuff start to form into storylines and all that. I love that, and then it's so much easier when I get to the page and to my keyboard to actually type it out. The hardest part is undoubtedly finding time to write. Between two small children and what feels like two jobs. I've never really struggled seriously with writer's block, but making it all hang together is challenging, making it all make sense, ironing out the continuities and making sure that I haven't got carried away in the process.
Mike, do you write from beginning to end, or do you pick different pieces, or do you have an end in mind before you start even the beginning?
I used to write completely sequentially without planning it at all, and I would just write whatever came out. And as much fun as that was, I realised it was awful to read. So I had to go back and start planning it, which means I would go ahead and I would work out exactly what the structure was, how the different storylines interweave and how it all hangs together. So now it's much more jumping around and making sure that everything makes sense. Adam.
So, have you already finished writing book 2 or 3?
I finished writing drafts. Book 2 is being processed at the moment. There's quite a bit of work to do on it still yet. And book 3 I have not yet finished the final rewrite, I should say. It was finished when I was 16, but I've been working on it ever since. So the publisher will be, chasing me for it soon, I'm sure.
What did your habitual writing process look like in the last 18 months in particular? Did you have, like Lucy was saying, you could designate time? What was that like for you?
Yeah, Lucy was fantastic in giving me Monday nights to set aside. Part of me wishes it could have been more, but I'm so grateful for that time, and I would just shut myself away in the study upstairs. I would put candles on, I'd try and create some sort of ambience. I'd be listening to Hans Zimmer or some of these other epic composers, and I would just try and immerse myself in the world I was writing in, and just try and get out as much as I could while I was in that zone.
I was not allowed to visit on Mondays.
No one was.
Hey.
Is Stephen Fry going to read the audiobook?
I'd love him to if he's available. I think it might be me doing the audiobook at first, so watch this space for that. But I'm certainly open to possibilities. And likewise, if anyone here knows any illustrators who are willing to work for free to begin with, send them my way. Please come and talk to me. That would be fantastic. Hi, Ruth.
What made you wait for a physical publisher rather than doing like indie writers and publishing and
Ruth was asking what made me wait for a traditional publishing route and doing it this way rather than doing indie publishing, and the answer is I wanted to do it properly, but I came so close to self-publishing. Many times, Lucy can say, I got within a whisker of going down that route, and the opportunity came through just at the right time, thankfully. I always believed in the book. I wanted to get it out there some way or other, but I'm glad that it was this way.
Is it available on Kindle?
It is available on Kindle. It's in the Kindle store now, so check it out. Tom.
Are there any particular real-world places that you've been to on holiday, or that have inspired elements of your fantasy world?
Absolutely. Mountains, particularly. I've been lucky enough to go to the Himalaya, as well as the Lake Districts, and the Pyrenees and other places. Any epic landscape really inspires me, whether it's Cornwall, or whether it's the canyons of America, or these incredible beaches. It all, feeds into the process. On my website, there's actually a guide to each of the different countries in Astron that you can go and check out, and actually drop a few notes about which parts of the real world are similar in terms of their climate and their culture. And so, if anyone's interested, you might like to check that out. Inappropriate ones, according to my wife. Yeah, I've had to heavily edit Brian Jakes' Redwall series because they're surprisingly violent for books aimed at kids. Yeah, the disemboweling scene couldn't be read out, unfortunately.
He's only 4.
Yeah, they're trying to avoid the nightmares. I read The Hobbit to Ethan when he was still in the womb. We've been listening to it again recently, and it's a real pleasure to hear him asking me questions about it. We've read Narnia. There's been all kinds of stuff like that, but I've...
Greek history.
Yes, the Tale of Troy.
Shipbuilding books.
Okay, yeah. So glad everyone's here to embarrass me. I love reading to them, and I really hope they grow up to enjoy reading this book as well.
They will.
Malcolm, hi.
Hi. If it was ever made into a film, who would you like to see starring?
Oh gosh, that was one of the questions I hoped wouldn't be answered. Wouldn't be asked. I kind of have Jim Caviezel in mind. I don't know exactly who for though. I kind of got, I don't know, I haven't properly thought that through. Eddie Redmayne, I think, would make a very good Rougeark. As for who would play, well, I try not to give too much away here. Cerulean would be a difficult, not quite Russell Crowe, but someone who's, bulky but has an air of authority. But yeah, when the opportunity comes knocking, I better give it some more thought. Yeah, maybe. Actually, yeah, there is one character who yeah. Hi. I might do a Peter Jackson and do some cameos every now and then. They probably would do well to keep me well away from it. Unless there's any other questions, we can bump the lights back up and we can carry on with the evening. But let me thank you all once again so much for coming. It really means so much to have you all here. This is such a special night for me, and it's great to share it with you all. Thank you so much.
So Mike's going to be over at the table at the back for signing books, buying books, and there's refreshments, there's some beautiful cakes and things over here, and drinks over there. Help yourself, mingle, and obviously get your book signed.